I'm an entrepreneur supremacist, you know. Like
Mm-hmm.
I say, yeah. At the end of the day, we're the ones that are pushing mankind forward. Without us, civilization grinds to a halt. We deserve to live in luxury. We the cream of planet Earth. Without us, you don't have light bulbs, you don't have iPhones, you don't have automobiles, you don't have these streaming services, you don't have all these things that are helping you move further, faster with less effort. It's all due to people that were willing to get out there and solve problems. So I believe that we're God's favorite.
Welcome, everybody, to our very first episode of Classes in Session. I am your host, Professor Devin Robinson, being brought to you by Black and in Business Media. Now, some of you out there may be asking, what is Black and in Business Media? Because so many people will say being in business is being in business. What is the difference of being black and in business? There's a whole lot of differences being black and in business. And if you've been following me for the many years that I've been doing this, you will understand many of the perspectives that I will be bringing to you in Classes in Session. Being black and in business has its own unique sets of challenges. It obviously led to me writing one of my greatest books, Blackpreneurship: 50 Obstacles Black Entrepreneurs Face and How to Overcome Them. That is part of the problem with blacks and in business. We tend to think that entrepreneurship and business ownership is the same, so what we do is go to the wrong sources for information that really does not fit us like a glove. And then we go out and try to take these things into our businesses, and then we struggle. We don't really make it as much and kind of can't figure out why we just can't get over that little tipping point. It's because we haven't mastered the black part of being in business. Now, saying being black and in business is not the whole idea of keeping it real, keeping it black. Many people will think like, oh, you got to keep it hood, you got to keep it real. Keeping it real is keeping it clean. Keeping it clean is keeping it profitable. Keeping it profitable is keeping it growth. That's being a professional, and that's being black. Do not believe in the idea of black started post-slavery or when we got off the ships. That's not when being black started. That's when being a captured black person that was enslaved started. And then we take that, and then it adds to the trauma and the many years and the decades of us now being traumatized and trying to heal and trying to get over certain things. And then how we were released, because that's what happened in America. We were released because we were pets first. We were released from the plantation, and then we went off to try to figure things out on our own. And how we settled, how our great-great-grandparents settled, and the things they had to figure out, like not being able to bank, not being able to have a real viable business or have assets or even have livestock. Many of those things caused us to walk with our heads down. And walking with our heads down, but then being aggressive with each other, somehow became the idea of being black. And then we walked away with that. And then we followed what the white media said of what black is being. So then we really then started to develop the ideal of what a black person is and what keeping it real is. However, all the history and all the evidence of what black really is whitewashed. It's gone. But it happened before slavery. It happened who we were before that point, when we were confident and we were kings and we were wealthy and we were thriving. That's the real definition of black. So don't bring the African American thing to me, because I'm not an African American. I'm a black first. You see, first of all, African American is confusing. I don't know what that really is. So if I move to Canada, what am I? Canadian? African Canadian? That don't really make sense. If I move to the Caribbean, I'm African Caribbean, then that doesn't really follow me. What you are is who you are, no matter where you go in this world. Africa is not a nation, and America is a continent, just like Africa. So I don't know where those terms come from. I think it's from being politically correct. But I digress. I know this is a very long intro, but I'm trying to set the tone for you to understand what Classes in Session and what black in business media really is all about. Now let's talk about Classes in Session. Classes in Session is a place where we'll be going to for rich ideas that will help contribute to our success in business. There's not necessarily that I may have all the bright ideas. it may sometimes mean that the people that are on co-hosting with me or my guests or even some of our viewers may have some of the bright ideas. And we come here and we mix it up like gumbo. We mix it up like stew. And at the end, we result in one of the greatest podcasts and platforms you will ever find for a black entrepreneur. Today, helping me host, my co-host, is Haziq Ali, the great Haziq Ali. And what we're talking about is, in our first season, we're talking about relationships in business. This very first episode, we'll be talking about relationship with self and business. And Haziq Ali is one of the premier experts in peak performance, self-development, self-ideologies, and transitioning from one place to the next. He's also the author of Take It Easy, Rules and Tools We Should Have Learned in School. And without further ado, I want to introduce Mr. Haziq Ali.
Oh, the honor's mine, King. I'm real proud of you, man. Real proud to be here, the inaugural episode. Let's get this thing cracking.
Well, you know what happened inaugurally with the Titanic. We don't want that kind of stuff.
I know that's right. Perish the thought.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Man, I know for a fact this is well needed, and I'm glad you're finally doing this. I'm sure that this came without a little bit of motivation from your family and friends and your
7
circle.
years.
Yeah, man. I know they've been on you about it, so I'm glad we're getting this thing going.
Yeah, finally we're getting it really rolling and, putting the right information, killing all the taboo and misnomers of what really should be happening in business for us.
That's
You know
right.
what I'm saying? It's
That's
like
right.
specifically for us that we really want to make sure that we get to the next level. So before we really go too deep in our conversation, people may be wondering, who is Haziq Ali? So for our listeners and our viewers, like who is Haziq?
Yeah, well, I'm somebody not unlike a bunch of the people that'll listen and watch this, man. Like, I was just trying to figure it out. I got told all the same stuff everybody else got told. Go to school, get a good job. The benefits will kick in, et cetera, so forth. You need to make sure you can set yourself up for a stable life. People are scared of entrepreneurship because they think that entrepreneurship goes hand in hand with unpredictable income. And, they're trying to save you from yourself, But that wasn't my path. My daddy was an entrepreneur, and, I learned just from watching his example. Like, one of the things I always say is, don't nobody say monkey talk, monkey listen. This is why a lot of your leadership is about your personal example, because the phrase goes, monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah.
And that's how it was with my pops, man. I watched him doing it, but he was doing it from such a servant perspective that wealth was never on his mind. God bless him, may he rest in power, but he could, one could be forgiven for saying he left us with bills rather than buildings,
Yeah.
And but be that as it may, man, I was following his example from an early age, never really had a job, have always just built businesses, et cetera, so forth. But valleys and peaks come with this entrepreneurship thing.
Oh, yeah.
Especially blackpreneurship.
Oh, yeah.
And before you know it, I found I went through sort of like a tumultuous period, went through a divorce, which I'm sure you'll cover that as we start to cover relationships and stuff. That's one of the most expensive adventures you could go on is a divorce. Then at the same time, my pops passed away. Then at the same time, I ran into some experiences with some real knucklehead employees. Before you know it, I was sleeping in my car. And that was quite an experience. But now I feel like it's one of the best things that ever happened to me, because it's not until you really meet up with adversity you discover who you really are, what you really got inside. And over those next few years, I was able to build myself to a 7-figure net worth. When I took over as the CMO of my current main company, I'll go ahead and I'll use that phrase, main company. We have been able to hit the Inc. 5000 list now 3 years in a row. We're one of the fastest growing companies in America.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, man, 3 years in a row. We just found out that it's coming down to third year, so it's a real blessing. But it all started from that knowledge itself, for sure.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about your childhood then.
Yeah.
So growing up as a child,
Yeah.
you're saying that you saw evidence of entrepreneurship. Is that what like piqued your interest to actually do it?
Yeah.
Or were you on like one side of the fence and had to transition to the other? Because my childhood was totally different from anything that I'm doing right now.
Yeah, I'm well aware. I can't wait till you get to share that with them. But yeah, with my experience, it was definitely from watching it, and those seeds were planted. But I was walking a path, man, where I thought I was gonna go into being like some kind of marketing executive, some kind of advertising executive. That's crazy that I just now said that. I never thought about it that's what I am now. That's wild. That's crazy. But But when I was a little kid,
wait. Let's slow up right there. Okay, wait. So your CMO, which for those listening, Chief Marketing Officer, is what you were saying. And you're saying as a child you would think you were going to be a marketing executive, right?
Yeah.
Now here's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
You're doing it in your own business.
Yeah.
You know how many people wouldn't view you as a marketing executive?
That's right. That's right, bro.
They would still just view you as, oh, he got his own business.
Yeah.
But they won't respect like those skills in marketing.
That's right.
That you're using for your own business,
That's
which
right.
often has to be more precise.
That's
than,
it.
You know, you work for a corporation.
Yeah.
You mess up their budget, it's no big deal.
Yeah, that's right.
You mess up your own campaigns.
Yeah. It hits a little different.
So that's so crazy that you still may not be viewed as a marketing executive.
Oh yeah, I know it for a fact. You know, it's amazing because, you know, as you're growing a business, you wear so many hats. You know, so that's my title. And, you know, one of those things that I know you're intimately aware of is that while everyone in the building might not be in the marketing department, they might not be in the sales department. Everybody in the building's in sales.
Yeah.
Everybody in the building's in marketing.
Yeah.
You know, I was just having conversations with our tech team about the fact that, you know, good marketing starts with the way you create the product.
Yeah.
Like the good marketing has to be built into what it is you're about to put out there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's amazing how people view entrepreneurship as this sexy kind of like monolithic kind of concept versus you understanding that you're going to have to get in there and learn the granular details of whatever business you're in if you're going to be able to be effective.
Yeah.
There's no way around it.
Yeah, you said something that also triggered, right? So a lot of people, whether in business or not, they tend to view that very product you were talking about as, you know, if you ask someone, right, if they would like a sales job, so many people resist that. Even though sales jobs, you have the potential to be very wealthy as a salesperson, right? But they don't necessarily want to have a sales job.
Yeah.
What we fail to understand, and you mentioned, we're all salespeople.
That's it.
It's just what we're selling. So if you tell them to sell a pen or sell this product because it's disconnected from them, it feels so difficult to sell. But every day we get up, we're marketing.
That's it.
What we decide to wear, where we place ourselves, when we're trying to get jobs or even get promotions. We're on the job and we're trying to get a promotion. We're a salesperson.
Come on.
Right? Because we're trying to sell that concept of self.
That's it. That's it.
To someone else. We're trying to get them to buy into self so that you can benefit from that purchase.
Yeah. And get you to see your vision in me, you know?
Right.
Like at the end of the day, that's what sales is. Sales is this idea that, see, entrepreneurship is not being a business owner. Entrepreneurship is about you pursuing opportunity without regard to the current resources.
Correct.
The whole idea that people think entrepreneurs are business owners is why most business owners ain't even entrepreneurs.
Correct.
You know, and this
That's
is
separate.
why they go out of business.
Two separate things.
It's two separate things. And so thinking like an entrepreneur is all about this concept of making something out of nothing. So it's like what you just now said, where, you know, you always hear people say, I don't care what nobody thinks, or they hold that up like that's an ideal. And don't get me wrong, lack of need for validation is the beginning of all power. I really believe that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you better care what people think. I mean, that's why you don't show up to a job interview in a bikini. That's why you don't go hunting, right? I mean, you got two different people hold a rifle. One is wearing an orange vest because he's a hunter. One is wearing fatigues because he needs to blend in with his environment. He's a sniper. It's all about like how you're presenting yourself so that you can be more effective. And so this whole idea of entrepreneurship that you're tackling on this podcast, man, is just going to be a godsend for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because your business school teacher didn't even have a business.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
This is what you want to know why our country's jacked up.
Yeah.
It's because this whole educational system is, criminally corrupt.
Man, let me tell you something. You just hit a trigger for me, right?
Yeah.
I remember when I was working on my doctorate, right? And so I'm a college dropout, right? Even though I made it to doctoral school, you know what I'm saying? I didn't drop out in undergrad. I got those degrees, but I dropped out in doctoral school. And the reason that happened was because I'm telling you, if I have to pinpoint what made that happen, it was specifically because I remember going to class, and when I was working on my doctorate, I already had businesses. Like I had staff, employees, the whole nine. So I'm like doing this thing, and I really was doing it because I'm like, where's the euphoria in business, right? Because this is, years ago, and I'm like, I want to reach to Mount Everest of business. So I'm thinking, like, as many people in society tend to look at entrepreneurs as like the subculture of business, not realizing like that's the tip of the sword, right? Like entrepreneurs are like, they've blossomed the businesses, but for some reason that's like this thing. So I'm like, okay, I'm already in business. I'm, doing all this stuff, but there's something, like I want to get to Mount Everest. So I'm like, let me just go ahead and get my doctorate in business. So I remember being in class, and then, the professors are all just professors. Like they're not, when I was teaching college, like I was a real business person teaching college.
Come on.
I wasn't a college person teaching business.
Come on.
Right? So I'm there, and I remember this professor had us we were in class, and he was like, we're gonna be this project we were working on. And he was talking, he was almost thinking he's giving some motivational speech, but he made me drop out. Wow. Because he was like, yeah, you guys are the cream of the crop, and while you here in getting your doctorate, once you graduate, man, with your PhD, you're gonna have the air of the CEO. And I'm sitting there like, if we're the PhDs and your objective is us having the air of the CEO, exactly what degree does the CEO have? Because I'm trying to get to Mount Everest. And I need to know then what degree is that? Because what you're still teaching us on this level, on the terminal degree level, is how to have the air of the CEO. Man, that discouraged me so hard that I was like, I'm out of here. I don't care how much money I've spent. Yeah. I'm like 2 classes away from but I felt so strongly about not sitting in the classroom under the tutelage of anybody else trying to tell me that at this level, we're not talking about how to bring third world countries into second world countries, how to like predict and fix economies, or how do we really deal with like human development in business and be like the people that's like the architects of business,
the masters of the universe.
Right. So if the masters aren't us with the PhDs, then who is it?
Come on.
So then it's just people who just decide to take on this path of being in business, of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, man.
And I'm like, if that's what you're saying, then I'm already ahead of the people who working on their PhDs because I'm already a business person.
That's right.
So if we're trying to have the air of the CEO, I already got my own ear.
Yeah.
So this isn't the place for me.
Yeah, man. But that's what makes you a king. Like sometimes I ask the crowds when I speak in front of them, I'm like, do you have any opinions that you're scared to share in front of like your family, your friends, whatever circle? And if you can't raise your hand and say, yeah, you're just thinking a bunch of stuff people told you to think.
Yeah.
You've been programmed. Back to your earlier point about sales, right? The reason that people are hesitant about taking that sales job is because they've been programmed by this hypnotic mechanism in society, right? Be it parents, preachers, teachers, be it the social media, the movies, the television shows. Whenever they show you a salesman, it's some sleazy dude. He's some kind of con artist.
Yeah.
He's some kind of scammer. He's playing a zero-sum game where because I make this sale, this person's worse off for it, and the salesman is better off for it, and then he goes laughing off into the sunset with the other person. This is how they program you. And I would just encourage everybody to look a little bit deeper into where your thoughts come from. Like, look at these mentors that you've chosen. Oh, they not, you don't call them mentors, but see, whatever entertains you trains you.
Yeah.
You know, you watching Titanic, and they making it look like the rich people is all stuffy and bored, and the poor people having a ball at the bottom of the ship. It's like, get out of here. And it all flows back to how you introed the whole show when you were talking about the way this country was built. This whole Dr. Claude Anderson, he talks about how, racism started as this race for land, like that, because you go to other countries, like I just got back from Switzerland and whatnot, and it's like, you don't, there's still the you feel the vibrations in certain places, but it's not like it is here in America. This country was built on blood. This country was built on, this whole idea of a very corrupt form of capitalism. And so when you talk about how slaves were forced into illiteracy, it was because they're pretty clear on the fact that illiteracy creates bondage. That whole story of Frederick Douglass and how knowledge makes a man unfit to be a slave because, the slave owner came home and found out his wife was teaching him how to read. That stuff is still super poignant today. And when you look at our education system and how they're refusing to give people literacy, not just financial literacy, but grocery store literacy, legal literacy. We don't have the literacy for how to run a family. We don't have the literacy for how to be leaders. We are completely devoid of the skills that will allow us to function in society and help push this thing forward. And now we got a day of reckoning coming.
That is so crazy because I do want to get into some pieces of that, of what you just said.
Yeah.
I remember talking to my son one day, and he told me that he was arguing with a friend of his who said, for every billionaire, there's a dead body behind them. And he was like, why is that the belief?
Where'd you get that?
That if you rise to the levels of like enormous success, like they say Jay-Z Illuminati, like everybody's doing something, and that's the only way you're gonna have success. So I mean, it's now this might feel a little blasphemous, but it's like when you're talking about going to church, right? That's a fine line. I remember someone bringing to my attention one time that all black churches talk about is the struggle. All they talk about is you're gonna overcome. You're going to get it next time. It's coming. It's always around the corner. But then you go to the white churches, they're celebrating their success.
Come on.
And it's like, no, we're the chosen people, and God has blessed us, and we're going to go to the next level. But then the conversation to us is always this like, you're more, there's more integrity and more value, I guess I want to say, in the struggling man. You know what I'm saying? Like, we look at like the struggle as synonymous with black.
We honor the man with 3 jobs.
Exactly.
But you start a business, I ain't going to work.
You ain't really doing nothing. You hear it all the time, especially from the politicians when they say, let me tell you, this grinds my gears so badly when they say blacks and poor whites. Like, because every time I hear it, it makes me think about math. When they have the greater sign and less than sign and the equal sign.
Yeah, man.
It's like, so you're saying blacks are equal to poor whites. So I always think about when they say that, and I wonder, okay, what context are they saying this? Are they really saying economically? Because if they're saying economically, that is so not true. Because they are wealthy blacks. And so if you're a wealthy black, you're not a black. Because we're saying black.
That's right.
And if we're saying black, then we're saying the totality of blacks, because we're not singling out the blacks, but they single out the whites by saying poor whites. So if we're saying all blacks and poor whites need help and equality and civil rights and all that stuff, then I'm like, are we really talking about economics?
Yeah.
Because it's not true. Okay, so if we are talking about economics, that means the wealthy black is no longer black. We got to call him something else. And if you're not talking about economics, then what are we talking about?
That's right.
What are they saying?
Yeah.
Is it now they're saying maybe sophistication?
Yeah.
Maybe opportunities?
Yeah.
Maybe social awareness or social?
Yeah.
Are they saying it in that context?
Yeah.
Are they saying political strength? What are they actually saying when they say blacks and poor whites? I take offense to it.
Yeah.
that you're gonna say my group of people. I don't know why black people don't be more up in arms about stuff like that.
Yeah.
Why me?
Yeah.
You're saying that I am equivalent to the poor whites. Do you know how disrespectful that is to say a whole group of people are equivalent to the lower class of our people?
Yeah, man.
That's some serious stuff.
But you have a level of awareness that makes you get up in arms about it. You know, what you're talking about with the masses are a bunch of hypnotized cattle or like sheep. It's like they literally we numb ourselves with Netflix, right? We anesthetize ourselves to the pain with just distraction. You know, we vote in the big WWF national elections, but we ignore the local elections that have to do with your potholes, the property taxes, whether the judges that are in that area are going to give out football numbers to your cousin when he gets caught without his seatbelt on and he was smoking some weed or something.
Yeah.
You're ignoring all of that because you're completely numb to what's going on. And the reason you're completely numb goes back to that point you were making about to be black is to hold your head down whenever you're around, you know, masses, descendants, and then get aggressive with each other. You know, we have this sense of low cultural esteem where we not only don't believe in ourselves, but if I see you coming down the street and it's late, then I want to cross the street. It's not enough. They think bad of me.
Yeah.
I think bad of me.
Yeah, exactly.
And once you think bad of yourself, I'm going to tell you, you ain't never going to go past your dreams. You ain't never going to go past your self-image of yourself. You know?
Exactly.
And if you go past it for a minute like a lottery winner, you're going to continue. Like I always describe it in terms of a thermostat. Like if that thermostat is set to 70 degrees, and we'll say thermostat is self-image, right? If your self-image is set to 70 degrees, then when it gets cold outside, then what? See, because everybody always talks about comfort zone like it's a bad thing. Let me tell you when comfort zone ain't bad. Comfort zone ain't bad when I was homeless because you're going to climb and back, like you scrape to get back to your accustomed level, right? Your comfort, right? Where comfort zone becomes a problem is when somebody tries to turn that heat up and you like, my thermostat set to 70. I don't belong in this kind of, let me mess this up and get back to, right? Because that thermostat, that self-image cuts back on. Just like a thermostat in your house. If it gets cold outside, the heat's going to come on and raise the temperature till it matches. If it gets hot outside, the AC going to come down and cool you down to the level that matches. You know, but the bottom line is that your self-esteem determines the level of your success. It's your self-image that you have to work on. And as long as we continue to let them program us with images, I was just looking at it this morning about how when Black Panther came out, they had people in all these Asian countries like, man, I always thought that white people were the most attractive, you know? I always thought that white people, you know, this, that, and the third. And she's like, but then when Black Panther came out and you got this General Shuri and you got all this, like, wow, you guys, and this is, she's speaking in Korean, like which I know is one of your languages. And she's laying it out and they're just putting the subtitles on the screen and whatnot. But it's just mind blowing how the effects when you learn the word strong from, you know, this, you know, dark-haired Jewish cat with blue eyes named Superman.
Yeah.
Or your kids learn the word beautiful from this blonde-haired lady named, you know, Cinderella or whatever is going on.
Yeah.
When this is how they formulate their vocabulary, I mean, what are they supposed to think when it's time for them to look at themselves?
Right.
Well, I mean, which doll baby are they supposed to choose? Why would they choose the black doll when that one is dirty? You know, why wouldn't they? And you see these images over and over and over again because our priorities are that of a Negro, which is this socially engineered to self-destruct creature, you know, that's been designed to be stuck in the last place of a real-life Monopoly game where if you keep on rolling the dice, you know, you either gonna go bankrupt or go to jail.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the piece right there. You're talking about we have this design, right? So this is like really the topic of what we're looking at with this episode, your relationship with self, right?
Facts.
So this is where we really need to like pivot in what we're saying in the conversation to what is it that people need to do, because you know, we know, first of all, entrepreneurs and people on entrepreneurship endeavors are the minority in America, right? The statistics says something like 10% of the society are entrepreneurs, but there's a much higher level of educated people, right? Say educated in its, more abstract sense, like just education, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that people have to do to really pivot into finding success in themselves? And I'm saying entrepreneurship because you defined it. It's absolutely true. Entrepreneurship and business ownership are two different things. Mm-hmm. You can own a business but not be entrepreneurial. You could have inherited a business and you took it into its demise. Like, entrepreneurs are people who are like, they're innovative and they find opportunities and make ways out of nothing.
That's right.
Department heads of companies can be, entrepreneurs.
Facts.
People on jobs could be entrepreneurs, but they don't own businesses.
That's right.
What is it, like some of the attributes or traits in a person that needs to be embodied and mastered in order for them to find that level of success? Because I'm going to tell you, quite frankly, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are insecure.
That's right.
They're insecure with their decisions. They're insecure with the whole living in the idea of the unknown. Yep. Like I train people and I tell them, the only thing that's known is your expenses. Your expenses are known. Yeah. Like, you get up every day. It's almost like a little bit of an insanity that entrepreneurs got to have.
That's right.
You get up and go every day not knowing what you're going to get at the end of the day, what you're going to have at the end of the day. Yeah. You just get up and keep going anyway.
Yeah.
But expenses are typically known. You know what your lease payment is. You know what this expense is, the whole nine. Mm-hmm. But you're grinding every day to make sure that the revenue, what you get, supersedes those expenses.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I do.
So what is it that needs to be in a person?
Yeah.
To determine, to master, to like pipe it up, as you would say.
Yeah, man. So that's an incredible question, and I hope everybody heard you when you asked that, because that, after all, is the existential question. It's like the way I always teach it to cats
big words.
is that what most people look at is their lifestyle, right? But when you look at lifestyle, you got to look backwards at your results, because it's the results that give you the lifestyle. And then they look at their results, and then you got to ask yourself, what gives you results? Well, you got to look backwards at your activity, because it's the activity that's going to give you the results.
Wow.
But then you look at your activity, and it's like, well, what gives you your activity? You got to look backwards at your attitude, because it's your attitude that's going to give you the activity. In architecture, attitude is like that slant of the roof and whatnot, right? But then what gives you your attitude? It's your philosophy. So the two things that you got to work on, in my humble opinion, if you're trying to transform your life, is one, you got to look at your philosophy, and then you got to look at literally, who you are. So there's who you are as a human being, which they don't teach you, because when John D. Rockefeller took over that general education board, due to money, and he said, hey, we got enough thinkers, now we need some workers, right? And now and that's a direct quote, by the way. And then they made it so the bell in the factory, they made it so the bell in the school sounds like the bell in the factory, so you're trained to be an automaton, and the minute that bell goes off, it's time to move, et cetera, so forth.
I'll write them down.
All of this is coming from this idea that we have got to fix our knowledge of self. So for instance, I'll give a small example. As you begin to get into the knowledge of yourself, you start to understand that you don't just have a brain, you have a mind. And then there are these 6 faculties of the mind, right? Like, we know when we go to Mali, we know that Benjamin Banneker, that did Big Ben and all of that, invented the clock and all. He planned out DC. We know that he was from the Dogon tribe. We know that if we go to Mali and we look in the caves in the Dogon tribe, they got the Sirius satellite system plotted out on the cave walls in Mali, So how do these kinds of things happen? Well, you have 6 different faculties of the mind. You got will, you got intuition, you got perception, you got reason, you got imagination, and you got memory. Out of all of those 6.
You got to slow this down, right?
Right.
Because you're trying to help people transition,
right?
Not get lost.
That's right.
So let's enumerate that again.
Yeah.
Just a little bit slower.
Yeah.
So people who are taking notes can really embody what it is that you're exactly saying. So let's go back in the 6 faculties of the mind.
Yeah. You got.
This is class.
Yeah.
You know
what
I'm saying?
Classes in session.
Classes
baby.
in session.
So again, all we're giving, and all Professor Devin is going to give you, as these episodes progress, is enough for you to get out there and know what to Google. Because, you know, you can have the wisest man in history sitting in front of you. You ain't got the right questions.
Yeah.
You ain't going to get the right answers. That's why I tell you, judge a man by his questions, not his answers.
Yeah.
You know, so this is just stuff for you to go out there and do your own research. We just going to start you off, right? But yeah, you got will, you know, which is like what you look at as a force thing. Will is about the fact that like you're gonna put mind over matter. If I had a gun to my head and I had to define will, I would say it's your ability to put your mind over what your body wants to do. It's your ability to say like, I'm going to do this and treat pain like it's a suggestion, right? That would be will, right?
Treat pain like a suggestion.
Treat pain like a suggestion. Treat impossible like an opinion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that would be will.
Difficult takes a day, impossible takes a week.
Come on, man. You know, to quote a
Source that. That's
self-made
Jay-Z.
billionaire.
That was not Professor Devin.
Listen,
that was Jay-Z.
But you'll hear me and Professor Devin quote Jay-Z a lot because most billionaires, you're reading a ghostwriter.
Yeah.
You know, they ain't write that book.
Yeah.
You know, at least when you listen to Jay-Z's music, you know a billionaire wrote it.
Yeah.
You know, but so you got will, then you got intuition. Intuition would have to do with the fact that your mind is constantly absorbent, especially when you were a child, which is why parenting, you know, we need to unpack toxic parenting. We need to unpack, I ain't trying to go dictatorial with it, but you know, some, you know what I mean? I don't want to say too much, but you know what? You know, I'm talking about opinions you probably shouldn't share.
Yeah.
I don't know if we need a license before people can have parents, because you're turning out, you're turning out
that's solid.
some wild boys.
I was talking to someone, please don't let me throw you off track. I hope I'm not a person that's throwing you off track. But I was talking to someone about that just the other day about how reckless it could be because we don't need a license to be an entrepreneur or be a business person to employ people. Like lawyers need licenses and doctors need licenses. It's like you can just come out. It's good on one side and bad on the other.
It is.
You know what I'm saying? You could really destroy some stuff.
Come on.
You know, like you have some employers and oh man, I could go so many areas because I talk about how we behave based on our job.
That's right.
Right? Our behavior is tied to our job.
That's right.
You could tell someone in the streets who ain't like a manager, right? Or someone who doesn't have like a certification that they're trying to protect.
That's right.
Or if they have a job at all.
That's right.
Like a job represents financial survival, right?
Man.
So think about how important being an employer is.
Yeah.
And if that employer is reckless and not developing of his people and oppressive of his people or her people and not, you know, giving them the right benefits maybe on the jobs and are they unhealthy, just different things.
That's right.
You have the power of sustenance, the power of economics.
That's right.
But your social power is even more powerful because of what you decide to do and how you decide to carry stuff. It's like, you know, some of the employers who would tell their employees they won't give them the day off to vote, and if they take the day off, they're fired, or if they call in sick, they're fired. Like stuff like that.
That's
like
right.
Imagine you don't have to have a license to be that person.
Oh, it gets worse. You don't have to be a license. You don't have to have a license to be a social media influencer. And they're officially saying that it was bad enough when black people were giving these celebrities from the world of sports. People like, how did Muhammad Ali come to speak for me? Well, I'll tell you how. He was the only one they let on TV. You know, he'll break some records and then they get him on TV. So he was thrust into that position. But now, you know, we trust influencers more than we trust celebrities. And that's even worse. Because you definitely don't need a certificate to be an influencer. You know, and so
you don't even have to be 18.
What are you saying? So
like you could be a kid with an undeveloped mind.
That's it.
I don't want to throw you off. You said parents and no licenses. It just made me like.
It's so true though, bro. So you know, we were talking about intuition and whatnot, and right to that point, it's a perfect segue because where your intuition is coming from is from all of this you've been absorbing. You know, like when I said earlier, what entertains you trains you. Your intuition is coming from, you can't explain why you have this feeling about the way that this guy is looking at you across the parking lot or whatever, but something clicks with something else, with something else, with something else, and then you get this feeling, this hunch, this gut sort of like a trigger, and then it makes you want to act in a certain way. We shouldn't ignore our intuition. we should do things like meditate, like clear space, like turn the notifications off your phone, practice expanding your attention span so that you can get more in touch with hearing God when he's talking to you, aka intuition. This is when a coincidence starts to really feel like God's staying anonymous because your intuition is on point. So that's will, that's intuition. Reason is a big one because reason, the third faculty we're talking about is critical thinking skills. You know, thinking is the hardest work most will never do, right? You know, most people just don't think. They play recordings and they confuse it with thinking. They're playing over and over and over the stuff somebody told them, and they think they're thinking. When really you're just like regurgitating. You're parroting idea. That's why I ask again: if you don't have any thoughts you're scared to share with people, you're probably not thinking for yourself. You're probably not using reason because we know this world is mostly poor people. We know this country's mostly the poor when anybody can go from 0 to 100 if they are sufficiently motivated.
Yeah.
Right? So we know that people aren't using their reasoning skills. So therefore, we know if we go with the crowd 90 times out of 100, we're going in the wrong direction. So your reason, your ability to critically consider something without emotion in it, to be rational, is a powerful faculty. You know, from there we'll go to memory and the fact that, like, if I were to hypnotize you, you could still tell me how many people were at your 5th birthday party. You could still tell me how many steps it was from the parking lot to this studio. You could, right? Your memory is insane, but memory is also very malleable. You know, as we see on them first 48 shows and all these other joints where they'll play with your memory and insert memories into your head, like that Inception movie. But memory is a faculty you should be paying attention to. Perception. You know, a lot of times perception is reality for people. What I try to remind people with perception is that 90% of the things that are around are invisible to you. You know, most things that are powerful are invisible, you know, but just to keep it in science, you can't see X-rays, you can't see gamma rays, you can't see ultraviolet. All you can see is this little small 10% of the electromagnetic spectrum, and you call that sight. You know, that's your perception. So now your perception becomes reality, but it gets bigger than that because either you gotta, you know, one of the things people always hear me say, like at the end of my TED talk, I was like, hey, either you gotta expand your mind to match your goals, or your goals will start to shrink to match your mind. It's your perception of where you're headed. Kind of like what you were saying about you begin to operate based on your self-image. Whether we're talking about a job title you have, or whether we're talking about whether you see yourself as a king or a criminal, you know, you begin to act as if. Well, you know, this whole idea of expanding your mind to match those goals you have is really important to your question about transformation, because if I'm not careful, my goals will be making it to the weekend. If I'm not careful, I will willingly trade in a happy life for a happy hour, you know, because that's my perception of what I can get out the game, you know. And so you got to watch what you're feeding yourself. You got to watch whether you're feeding yourself fast food or soul food. You got to watch whether you're giving yourself some type of mental nutrition so that you can begin to adjust your perception based on a higher level of reality. Because I ain't saying it ain't reality that the glass is half empty. I ain't saying it ain't reality that the glass is half full. I'm saying that you want to adjust your perception to say that, like, no matter what's in the glass, I'm going to sell it because somebody thirsty. You know what I'm saying? And then, of course, you got imagination. Like Einstein was like, imagination is more important than knowledge. And I'm living proof of that, sitting here with no college degree, et cetera, so forth. But what's wild is I put out this vision board coloring book. I never list that when I talk about being an author, but to my knowledge, my vision board coloring book is the first vision board coloring book that's ever been invented. Right on the cover of it is a Bentley. This past Thanksgiving, I had picked up my brother and my sister and took them to my uncle's house. He went to Harvard. All my cousins went to Harvard, Wharton, all of these schools. Here I am, got kicked out of college, and I picked up my pediatrician sister and my brother, who's also like a big dog in the world of corporate, even though they both dabble in entrepreneurship, et cetera, and so forth. And my uncle still be laughing to this day about how I'm the one with no degree, but I pick him up in the Bentley truck. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it's because my imagination, right on the front of that vision board coloring book, there was a Bentley. I had never rode in a Bentley before I bought one. But imagination is a dog. If people would just learn to visualize, if they'll just learn to put these thoughts and these images in their head and dig that even God started with an image, right? Like God didn't start with the clay. He you know, if I'm reading the book right, this big book about entrepreneurship that everybody, you know, is one of the best-selling books in the world, you know, it says that God created us in his own image. That means he had to start with the picture of it all. And so if people would just understand those 6 faculties, they'll be a lot further along the path of having a healthy sense of self-esteem. Because no matter what they told you, what she told you, your ex-wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your ex-husband, however it goes, you still kind of know who you are and whose you are at the point you begin understanding on a neurological perspective and a spiritual perspective, the power you got inside you. So you mean to tell me I was created by a creator to be creative? Like, yeah, they say cleanliness is next to godliness. I'd be like, creativity is next to godliness. You know what I'm saying? Because it's your imagination that's going to set the pace. Whatever you aim at determines what you see. You know what I mean? Like people always think that it's the past that creates the present, right? But when you study quantum physics, what you start understanding is that it's your vision of the future that creates the present. Because depending on my goals is whether I'm paying attention to how they put together this production studio. The next person is sitting in here that don't care nothing about increasing their impact with media. They're not even noticing all of the teaching lessons that are in this room, because their future dictates that this present moment has nothing to do with that. So they checking their social, they scrolling, looking, because they're completely oblivious, you know, to all of these jewels that are around them. Because at the end of the day, their mind is starting to shrink to match their goals. I know that was a hell of a long answer, man.
Oh, no. This is class.
Word up.
We don't ring the bell in this class.
All right.
So we definitely need to get it all flushed out. You know what I'm saying? Like this is not the Cliff Notes. Like we can dig in and get to it. You know what I'm saying? One of the things that I often tell people in my trainings or speaking or whatever, I try to bring to people's attention that, because this is a thing that happens, right? When you talk about future and present and stuff, a lot of times people look at themselves and like an ego and a cockiness tends to kick in for people, and people think that ego and cockiness is synonymous with aggression, and it's not, right? You can have some of the most subdued, passive people that are cocky within themselves, right? And just like as you were saying, you got to be open to pay attention, to receive, and get that programming in your mind to move forward. A lot of times people get cocky off of like, I don't want to hear what you have to say. Like right now, right? We have, like, I own multiple businesses. One of the businesses we do incubation, training services, getting people in business, like business for real. Like we go out and do the leasing and the build out and all that stuff, right? Yeah. And while we're preparing people to become, in most cases, first-time entrepreneurs, first-time brick and mortar entrepreneurs, we have a whole training program that they should be taking online. I can't tell you how many people I check to see when we get into the end of their business, check to see how they did on their training, and the majority of them never did it.
That's it.
Never did it. Never started. Started a little bit, stopped the whole nine.
That's it.
And let me tell you what that comes from. That comes from us thinking we know it all.
That's it.
I try to tell people, you are the smartest you've ever been in your life right now.
Come on.
But you're not the smartest that you will ever be. Right?
That's a jewel.
So today, we feel that the knowledge we have today is so great. But do you know in 24 hours from now, you have even more knowledge?
That's it.
And in a week from now, you have more knowledge? Or 5 years from now, you have more knowledge, right? So think about yourself 5 years ago. I'm sure you would say, man, had I known today had I known 5 years ago what I know today, I'll be better off.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Here's the crazy part. A lot of people don't realize that people are coming from the future to save them from their future. What do I mean by that? You have people, we're all not on the same, we all may be in the same time. We all may be right now, the same studio, the same time of history, but that don't mean we're at the same point in our journeys of life. You have people that are sitting right next to you that are 10 years ahead of you in experience, knowledge, finances, the whole nine. And when that person sitting next to you is talking to you, you're closed off and you don't want to hear what they have to say.
Come on.
But they're coming from your future. They're coming 10 years ahead of you to tell you, hey, this is what you should be doing and this is what you should not be doing. I don't care their age. It could be younger than you, the same age of you. But if they have compiled more experience or knowledge than you, that means they know more than you.
Come on.
So that means they're coming from your future. You're going down this road and they're able to say, maybe you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Or maybe you shouldn't start the business like this.
Yeah.
Or maybe you shouldn't. And we're so closed off because we're thinking we're so smart that we don't want to receive and digest what that person may be saying.
That's it.
And the reason why we say that a lot of times is because you're sitting in the same room as me.
That's it.
You're sitting in the same room as me. So how could you possibly know more than me or that much more than me? Well, I try to tell people there's only two things in life. There's levels and there's circles. You may have people in your circle who's not on your level. And you may have people who's on your level but not in your circle. You got two separate things. So if you're saying, I got this person in my circle but they're not on my level, you may be confusing yourself. Let's just say you are on a level above them, and we're talking about levels. Let's just make it simple. I'll specify socioeconomic level, right? Let's just say they're on a higher level than you, and they just somehow wound up being in the same circle as you, right? You should be wise enough to extract. I tell people, pick my mind, don't pick my pocket. You know what I'm saying? You get more value picking my mind.
That's right.
You should try to extract what's in that person's mind more so than anything else. But unfortunately, so many people are running around in circles thinking that we're on the same level. It's a confused state that you're thinking, well, you did it, and then we get closed off. Yeah. So we don't really recognize the people that are further ahead than us in certain things that are coming from our future, ideological future, to tell us this is what you should be doing and this is what you shouldn't be.
Yeah, or we recognize it, and instead of getting motivated, we get intimidated.
Right.
We recognize it, and then we
just turn into a hater. Just
turn
be
into
plain
a
and
hater
day. Just
because
our community's full of them.
But that's why I broke down philosophy. I broke down lifestyle coming from results, which is coming from activity, which is coming from attitude, which is coming from philosophy. Because a lot of people had this philosophy of mediocrity because of the fact that they have low self-esteem. They use ego. They say rudeness is a weak person's imitation of strength. Well, ego is a toxic version of self-esteem. It's like a toxic imitation of self-esteem. Like we'll be macho because we don't really feel secure.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
And so what'll happen is what people do is they make the fatal mistake. I gave these 5 pieces. That's a syntax where I talked about how philosophy gives attitude, gives activity, gives results, gives lifestyle. But what most people do is they try to start with the activity. And that's what creates this weird thing where, it's like you stretching out the rubber band, but the minute you release it, the rubber band go back to the real size. Because you haven't fixed the philosophy. You just trying to start with the activity. That's why they get into your course and then they won't take the course. Or they'll buy the book and they won't open it because they just like, man, hurry up and get me to the result.
Yeah.
Like, bro, I just want the result. You're talking too much.
Yeah.
You're trying to teach me too much, Ali.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Professor Devin, you giving too much. Just make me rich, bro.
Exactly.
And the whole thing is.
Just put me in there and I'll figure it out from there. And then you're lost, right? They're half cocked.
I painted for him. I'm like, your best friend show up, got the new car and whatnot. You got 2 choices. You could be like, oh, he come blasting it, man. All right, turn that, you know what I mean, that crap down. You know what I mean? And a lot of you thinking that in your head, or you can be like, oh snap, yo, this joint. Oh, you got leather in it. Oh, look at the wheels. You know what I'm saying? Oh, how did you do this? So I can get on. Now, if I have the philosophy of how did you do this, all of a sudden I can mine my best friend's mind so that I can do it too.
Right.
But if I have this thing where I could never get that anyway, they lucked up, you know what I mean? I'm mediocre. Everyone knows I'm mediocre. Everyone knows that ain't my lot in life. Now I turn into a hater because in my mind it's a competition. Instead of me looking at this as a classroom, I'm back to this colonizer vibe of it's a race. And a race, everybody knows you can only have first place and second place, which is first loser and third. But in a classroom, we could all get an A, baby.
Exactly.
Because it's us against the teacher.
Or they revert it around and say, you ain't nobody.
You ain't
Not
nobody.
Not because you got that don't mean you somebody. That still don't make you somebody.
Yeah.
You don't know what I got. Yeah. But they really don't have nothing. But they just, it's that kind of like defense mechanism. You don't know what I got.
That's it.
And it's, come on, like successful, like here's the thing about this, right? It's like a language, right? It's like a language. It's like you growing up in the neighborhood you grew up in. Once you have like certain things that are embedded into you, you can easily recognize someone else.
That's it.
Right?
That's
so
it.
it's like the movie what was it? Men in Black, I think, when the creatures or the aliens were like trying to look like normal people in society, but they would look at it and be like, come on. Like that's one of them. Shoot them. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so when you have some of these people being like defensive and like, you don't know what I got, a successful person knows. You don't need to show me your bank account for me to know that you bought something.
That's
like
it.
There's a lot of people that go around getting jerked. They go around and getting schemed and stuff because they're not successful themselves, so they don't know what it looks like.
That's
So
right.
they don't know how to recognize what it is. And success is not necessarily about how much money you got or the material things. The material things is birthed from your brain.
That's
like
it.
It starts in your brain. Like it starts with your mindset, and you can recognize. I can recognize somebody who's from the Virgin Islands.
That's right.
Like you can't tell me you're from the Virgin Islands.
Yeah.
And you're not.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Like there's no way you can fake that. With me or from anyone who was born and raised there.
Yeah.
They know, like, because that happens. Like people will claim that. People will come from a different island, and then someone who's not from there would say, "Oh, my friend is from St. Thomas," and then next thing you know, I meet, "Oh, this is my friend from St." I said, "Oh, really? Oh, okay." So I'm taking it for face value, like it's true, and then you're like, "Oh, okay. So what part?" And then they would say something. I'm like, "Yeah, they're not. They visited family there, or they passed through there, but they're not from. They're not. You know what I'm saying? Like you can recognize that as a successful person. You know what I'm saying? One of the things you say, you talk about entrepreneurs at a cream of the crop or something like that. Like, go into that. What do you mean?
So you know, they be like, sometimes when they introduce me and stuff, you know, I tell them like I'm an entrepreneur supremacist. You know, like I say, you know, at the end of the day, we're the ones that are pushing mankind forward. You know, without us, civilization grinds to a halt. We deserve to live in luxury. We the cream of planet Earth. You know, without us, you don't have light bulbs. You don't have iPhones. You don't have automobiles. You don't have these streaming services. You don't have all these things that are helping you move further, faster, with less effort. It's all due to people that were willing to get out there and solve problems. So I believe that we're God's favorite. I believe that whatever holy book you pick up and hand me, I'm going to tell you that's a book about entrepreneurship. You know, I believe that God wants man, listen, even when you start talking about that story of Adam and Eve, it's a mindset story, because when Adam and Eve were in there, God was like, yo, you can have any of this. I'm not a Bible scholar, by the way, but loosely, stop me when I tell a lie. He's like, you can have any of this. You know, and then the devil come along and be like, well, you know, accept that. You know, so the devil come in and add a word.
Who do you think God is? This is the devil. Who do you think God is? Who is he to tell you can't mess with this one over here? Yeah. Like, really?
Right. So then when you look at the story, and this tree is right in you remember where it is. It's not to the left, it's not to the right, it's in the center, right? And so what that story tells us is that the first trick that the devil ever pulled off was convincing us to look at our lack instead of our abundance. Because now you all focus on this one thing you can't do, but you could do all this other stuff. You know what I mean? That's a story about mindset. And what I'm saying to him is that at the end of the day, when we're saying we're the cream of planet Earth, what we're saying is that we're the few and the proud that don't stare at the lack. We don't stare at the one thing that we looking at all this opportunity around us. All entrepreneurs do is solve problems. Like, if I'm selling mink coats, I'm gonna go broke if I'm trying to sell them on the beach. Because don't nobody have that problem on the beach, you know. But if I'm opening restaurants, that would be crazy if no one needed to eat. If I'm opening up hotels, that'd be a stupid business to get in if no one ever needed to sleep. But because I see people have that problem, I tell them all the time, Like the most negative person you know is thinking of business ideas all day. It's just that they call them complaints. They think they complain. They don't get that their infinite black mind is seeing business ideas everywhere. If you would just have the self-esteem to be like, God gave you that insight. God showed you that lack right there. Why? So you could complain about it? It's like, stop complaining, start training. You know, and that's why I'm glad to have brothers like you out here, man, teaching them, because when they listen to podcasts like this, what they doing is working on their philosophy. That foundational, fundamental part of them getting to that lifestyle they want. Every day, you're helping them bulletproof their philosophy, grow their philosophy a little bit more, so that it's
become confident in it,
so that you can become confident in something real. Because to your point earlier, like I always say, ego comes from when you got confidence but no competence.
Yeah,
you know. But what you're doing is giving them both, man. And I just applaud you for it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You gotta, I tell people that entrepreneurship is a sport of discomfort. Like you gotta become comfortable being uncomfortable.
Preach.
Like that is probably the foundation of entrepreneurship.
Facts.
Nothing about it would be comfortable. Now people make it sexy in media or movies and make it like, you know, they show the power suit and you doing all this, and that's not. First of all, you're many years away from it. You got a lot to master before you can get to it. And you don't start that way. You start, you said it earlier, you kind of alluded to it earlier. You start off working many positions that you felt or feel are beneath you to be employed.
That's it.
So you may not go look for a job as a receptionist or a janitor or a secretary or some type of admin person, but then you as an entrepreneur, you become that, right?
That's it.
And you know, and what I tell people as also with self is, you know, so many of us understand the concept of going to college or going to school to get trained for that thing. So I'm gonna go. We proud, right? Our kids going to college to work in HR and get a marketing degree and get all these different things. But then when those people maybe get tired of corporate America, probably pick up a felony conviction, become unemployable, whatever, and now they want to do their own thing, they don't go to school and get trained for it. They don't go seek out someone, mentorship, training program, something to prepare them for entrepreneurship. So you're basically saying that you need a degree to work that position, but you don't need no type of training to supervise that position. Because as a CEO, as you grow and you start to hire people, and you're going to have to know, even if you wasn't trained in HR, you got to have some idea of the general principles of HR and marketing and sales and logistics. And so you got to go. It's good for you to go somewhere to get that, whether podcast reinforcing things or training programs, to get that understanding so that now you can develop the people that actually went to college for it. But sometimes, so many times we don't do that. We just stumble out into it. I can cook, so I can be a chef, and I can just start a restaurant. I can cut hair, so I can be a barber. Like, we look at the craft so much more than the craft of leadership or the craft of being an executive or the craft of being a manager. Like, it's so much more that goes into it. And that's the kind of stuff what I try to talk about when it comes to being black and in business. Like, you run in to be a business owner, but black people, we do not have the same opportunities. Racism does not stop when you start a business. You start a business, so racism stops. If we understand that George Floyd was a real thing, Trayvon Martin was a real thing, Sean Bell was a real thing, Oscar Grant was a real thing, Eric Garner was a real thing. I can keep going because I got some activism in my blood.
Come on now.
But if we understand that those things are real thing, Walter Scott, like I can, I keep going, Breonna Taylor, we can keep going. If we can understand that those things are real, don't think that when you go into business, it doesn't exist there as well. You're gonna get denied. Your business plan is gonna get denied. You're not gonna get a diverse workforce many times. You will not get adequate funding many times. You're not gonna get the right people, even from our community, to come work for you many times. You don't really attract a high-skilled worker and a high-paying customer. There's so much that you have to develop and figure out in order to ascend from black entrepreneurship into being a mainstream entrepreneur.
That's it.
Man, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I don't know if there's any last words you want to leave with everybody. As we go, first episode, inaugural, ship didn't sink. We didn't hit an iceberg.
We ain't hit an iceberg, baby. But we did give them the tip of the iceberg, man. And I'm just so proud of you, man. So proud to say that you are in my circle, man, and just always, excited to learn from you and just watch you hit these new levels, continue changing lives. And, I just hope everybody caught a little something out of what we were talking about, because it's transformed my life. If they go to my Instagram page, which is Mr. Haziq Ali, I'm sure they'll find things on there of value. You can Google me, put my name in YouTube, see what happens. And, if there's any way I can help out there, just know you got people like me, you got people like Professor Devin that want to save you some heartache, that want to hold your hand and kind of walk you through this jungle, because it ain't no joke out there, especially for us. And while that is bad, there's no bad without good. There's no way you can have pros without cons. And one thing about us, we done so much for so long with so little. We now qualified to do anything with nothing.
Yeah, man. Yeah, definitely. I appreciate you coming on. You know what I'm saying? To all the viewers, I really appreciate you tuning in to our first episode. This season is about relationships in business. We're going to be talking about relationships with clients, how you should manage those, relationships with employees, family, friends, even vendors, colleagues, the whole nine. And this is just the beginning of many episodes that we're going to use to bring you to the next level. So until then, I will say to all the black entrepreneurs out there, we pray for your win, and let's make sure we outgrow our yesterdays. Peace. See you next time.